Hey everybody, and welcome to the 𝗟𝗞𝗞𝗘 YouTube channel. Finally, my name is Jacob. Here, I am the owner of the 𝗟𝗞𝗞𝗘 YouTube channel, and we are finally here in the Last of Us Part 2 discussion video. A year in the making. After I finished the game for the first time, I thought the best idea would be to do a discussion video, but it took me so long to do. Number one, just because, like, around that time was when the whole pandemic started, so there was a lot of other different stuff on my mind. And also because I thought to myself, like, I feel like I need to play the game again before I give an honest discussion about it. And the problem with that is I was worried to play the game again because I was worried that I was going to hate it even more than I did the first time around. If you guys didn't watch my playthrough, I did an entire playthrough of the game, and there was a lot of moments where I was not having fun. Mostly in kind of the second half, where you play as Abby, as I'm sure a lot of people did. But I will say, on my second time playing through, I definitely had a lot more fun. It's actually funny, my brother hadn't played the game yet, so I let him play, and then he kind of played up all the way up till Abby's part, and then that was around the time that he stopped, and that's where I picked up. So the second time around when I played, because I already knew what happened with like Ellie and stuff like that, I felt like playing as Abby would be a really good starting point, because that was the point in the game that I really wasn't enjoying myself. So that was the point where I decided to start. My second playthrough was playing as Abby immediately from the beginning. And this time around I had a lot more fun, especially playing as Abby, because I will say I did have a lot of the cheat codes on. I had unlimited ammo, like one-hit melee, like one-shot bullet kills and stuff like that. It's still pretty freaking fun, like, especially playing as Abby, where you just, like, run up to somebody and you, like, fucking punch their teeth out in, like, one hit and stuff like that. Or when we got to the Rat King fight, all I did was, like, shoot it with one bullet or something like that, or, like, spray it with the flamethrower for, like, 2 seconds, and it immediately went down. Like, it was just funny stuff like that. Plus, it helped me get through her missions very quickly, which was very nice, because I definitely wanted to get back to the story with Ellie. I still didn't really care about a lot of Abby's friends, emotionally. I know why she obviously cares for them. I was a little bit more interested in their whole dynamic, with Owen and Mel and her and Yara and Lev. I really liked their story over again. And actually, on this second time through, I finally, like, was able to pick up on the whole, like, gender thing going on with Lev. Because the first time playing through, I was so confused, like, I thought from the very beginning Lev was a boy. Like, I must have completely missed the conversation where they were talking about Lily. Like, I did not know that that was supposed to be an LGBTQ character, so my apologies for that. I feel like I was just so taken out of it that I did not care about Abby's whole part the entire first time around, that I didn't even pay attention to the dialogue where they were talking about that. So my apologies for that, but that's pretty cool. Yeah, Yara and Lev were really cool. Yara's death was very out of nowhere the first time I played, which, I mean, I guess that's kind of a theme, is like, you can die at any point in this world. That goes for Yara, that went for Jesse, that nearly went for Tommy, and it nearly went for a lot of other people as well. Let's talk about some of the stuff that I'm sure you guys want to hear me talking about. Joel dying very early on in the game. I wasn't mad about it. Obviously, I was kind of upset about it, but, I kind of saw it coming, just because like, hey, a lot of the trailer footage, even from the very first reveal trailer, a lot of people were speculating that Joel's dead or that Joel's going to die. Some people thought that he was just going to be like a ghost that Ellie sees and stuff like that. There was the whole trailer thing where, like, obviously in the game it's revealed to be Jesse that's standing behind her, but there was that whole shot in the trailer where, like, Ellie asks, "What are you doing here?" And then Joel says, like, "You think I'd let you do this on your own?" People are thinking that that's just Ghost Joel joining her on her journey, which honestly I feel like would have been pretty cool. Like, not all throughout the game, but maybe like you have these moments where Ghost Joel shows up to kind of be Ellie's conscience, but really it's just Ellie's conscience talking to herself, but it's manifested as Joel. I don't know. I feel like that might have been kind of cool, especially if he showed up during like the final fight and like tells Abby or tells Ellie, like, what's this gonna prove? This isn't gonna bring me back or anything like that. But anyways, I didn't mind Joel dying just because, you know, like, it gave a story purpose and stuff like that, and, you know, for what he did, I mean, yeah, I can understand why Abby went after him and killed him. Like, I mean, if someone killed my dad, or father figure, I would definitely want to go after them. But yeah, it still sucked to see Joel die. The scene was very, very brutal. This is something that I wanted to bring up because it was something that I was very mad at the beginning, after my first playthrough, and I see a lot of people are very mad at the whole scene where Abby kills Joel before then, where like Tommy and Joel are talking to everybody and Joel announces his name. He's like not off guard. A lot of people were very mad about that. And I watched the spoiler cast from Kinda Funny where they talked with Neil Druckmann and Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker. And the way that they talk about that scene, it's that Joel's been like living the good life for so long, that kind of he has let his guard slip down, and like immediately he regrets it in that moment, which I'm really glad I watched that spoiler cast because it gives me a new thought process for a lot of the stuff, especially with Abby's side of the story, and stuff like that. So I'm very glad that I got to watch that because I've been waiting for like a commentary thing for the game, or like where they go through the game with and talk about it, because I wanted to know what their vision was, what their like meaning for some of the stuff in the game was, because I feel like that sort of might have helped a lot of people kind of understand the whole Abby part, like wondering why we play as Abby and stuff like that. Which, like I said during my first playthrough, I knew exactly why they were doing it, and it's kind of a detriment to me being like a wrestling fan and a movie fan too. Is sometimes in pro wrestling and sometimes in movies they have like these moments where you try to get people to sympathize for both the hero and the villain. And here they tried to do that with Abby, and for a lot of people it didn't work. First time around, didn't work for me. Second time around, it worked a hell of a lot better. Just because, you know, I guess since I already knew what was coming, I didn't have to be shocked or angry or anything like that. I knew what was coming. I knew it was going to happen. I still didn't like that after playing as Abby, I had to fight Ellie as Abby. That still kind of stung. And no doubt about it, there were still a couple of moments where, like, I would fail to kill Ellie and I would see Ellie kill Abby. I'd get a little smirk on my face just because I was remembering my first playthroughs where, like, that stuff happened, and I would just joke with myself, like, all right, game's over. Ellie killed Abby. All right, cool. But I do like how Neil Druckmann talked about the two different stories of Ellie and Abby, how it's basically the stories of hate and the stories of revenge. And Abby's story of revenge was basically like, what happens after I get my revenge? She got her revenge on Joel, but, you know, it didn't bring her dad back or anything like that. Like, the whole world isn't talking about, like, oh my god, Abby killed Joel. Like, in universe, the whole world isn't talking about, like, oh my god, Abby killed Joel. She finally found the person that killed her father. Like, you know, killing Joel didn't bring her dad back. So, what do you do after you get your revenge? Well, she goes back to the wolves and she's doing her job and she's arguing with Owen and stuff like that about what's going to happen. And Owen wants to go find the fireflies, and Abby's not wanting to go with him to find the fireflies. And then she gets mixed up with Yara and Lev. And then she finds new purpose in life protecting Lev, which is pretty cool. So now she has that sort of relationship, sort of like how Joel and Ellie had their relationship. And then Ellie's journey of hate and journey of revenge is just beginning because Abby killed Joel and now Ellie wants to kill Abby. So it's a big old cycle. And she goes through, she kills all of Abby's friends, and then all of a sudden Abby shows up after she finds out that Ellie's killed all of her friends, and then they have their big fight. And then Abby wins, and seemed like she was going to kill Dina until Lev convinced her otherwise. And then they leave. Ellie and Dina go on to live on a farm with a baby. And then finally Tommy shows up after nearly dying. I thought that entire scene with the barn during my first playthrough, I thought that entire scene with the barn was Ellie and Dina and Tommy were all dead. Like, I thought that was them living in heaven or something like that. Like, you know, the whole saying, like, when you die, like, you bought the farm. I mean, they were literally living on a farm. Like, I'm really glad that it didn't end up being that, but that's what I was thinking very early on. I will say, towards the end, like with that whole scene at the barn, there were a lot of moments where I thought the game was going to end there. Like, during my playthrough, I think I say it a lot. Like, whenever it cuts to black, I feel like I'm asking myself, like, is that it? Because, like, you never really know, like, especially the way The Last of Us Part 1 ended, like, it ended with that whole scene of them, like, next to the waterfall, like, about to go into Tommy's town. Like, I mean, who knows? I'm sure they would have been down to end it on a very down note. I mean, they kind of already did with what they did go with Ellie walking away, missing a couple fingers, and leaving the guitar behind. But I feel like there are a lot of moments there at the barn, even before that, where I feel like the game could have ended, you know. But I'm glad it kind of did end the way that it did. Just because if there is a part 3, then there's a very interesting story that you could tell there. There's 2 different ways that I feel like it could go from there. I want to talk about some of the reasons why I kind of didn't like Abby the first time around, and obviously one of the reasons why is she killed Joel. One character that we have been excited to see go on in this series for years. We've been hoping for a sequel, and with that comes the idea, like, we want to see more Joel. And obviously, after all these years waiting to see what happens to Joel and Ellie, for the game to come out, and immediately the first big thing that happens with Joel is he gets killed by Abby, it's kind of like oh, okay, alright then. And then we play as Ellie, and all of her stuff is really cool. The companionship between her and Dina is pretty great, or at least I thought so. And then there's a big chunk where we play as Abby, which I don't think a lot of people were keen on. Number one, because she was the person that killed Joel. Like, I don't really think anyone was super thrilled to play as the person that killed somebody's favorite character, and also because, like I said, like, after all these years, we've been wanting to catch up with Joel and Ellie, like, and then there's a big chunk of the game where we play as someone who is not either Joel or Ellie. A lot of people thought early on, I myself included, thought that was going to be Anna, Ellie's mom, which I feel like that would have been pretty cool, but I don't know how the heck they would have tied it all together. I don't know. Yes, Ellie's mom, Anna, came back and killed Joel because he didn't sign the adoption papers for Ellie. I don't freaking know. But yeah, that's part of the reasons why I didn't like Abby the first time around. I liked her a lot more this time around just because, like, I started seeing her as sort of like the Joel character, you know, from the first game. Like, she got her revenge and now she's just kind of like living her life, and trying to move on from her grief of losing her dad, and now finally having some sort of, like, moment of levity after killing Joel and getting her revenge, and now she's back with the wolves, and now it's like, where do I go from here? And then she ends up teaming up with Lev, and sadly not Yara too. But yeah, Lev takes on that Ellie role, and Abby takes on the Joel role. So that's where I definitely liked her character side this time around a hell of a lot more than before. So I definitely liked Ellie or Abby a lot more this time around. Um, my favorite scenes, in the game were these flashback moments with Joel and Ellie, especially the one where they go to the museum, just because like they run into dinosaurs, and I love dinosaurs, so that was very awesome. Um, but even those awesome scenes just kind of made me even more mad at Abby because it's like, you killed Joel, meaning we can't have any more moments like this. And I will say, the first time around, I did not like the flashbacks. I even still don't really like how they're laid out, just because like at some points they feel very random, and I don't know. I feel like maybe if they were placed all together at the beginning with a whole bunch of like Joel and Ellie playing together, or hanging out together and doing all this stuff and talking about, like the hospital and stuff like that. Then we kind of cut to the present day. I feel like that might have been better just because it would have given us more time at the very beginning to kind of get reattached to Joel and Ellie. And then when the killing of Joel happens, then maybe it can be a little bit more impactful. But, it's the way they wanted to tell the story. I still like the scenes on their own. It's just kind of jarring to jump back and forth, But like I said, I like those moments, but they make me hate Abby even more because it's like, well, great, now we can't have any more of these moments because you killed Joel. I mean, especially that last scene with Joel and Ellie, the flashback where Ellie, when she's fighting Abby, she gets like a glimpse of Joel sitting on the porch with his guitar, and then later on we get the scene. Even that scene makes me hate Abby more because the whole scene is about Ellie telling Joel, like, I want to try and forgive you. Like, that makes me hate Abby even more just because, like, well, thanks to Abby, Joel and Ellie never got a chance to forgive each other. And, I've been thinking, like, why is it that that scene makes Ellie stop fighting Abby and lets her go? Like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of it. I mean, I'm guessing that it comes down to the whole thought of, like, break the cycle. Or maybe she sees that Abby and Lev have this whole Joel and Ellie relationship now, and now she's just trying to end it because, like, obviously Abby and her dad had that sort of relationship, father-daughter relationship, and Joel and Ellie had that father-daughter relationship. Joel kills Abby's dad. Abby kills Ellie's dad. And then if Ellie would have gone through with it and killed Abby, that means Ellie would have killed Lev's mother figure. So that would just be a whole cycle, and then odds are later on, Ellie, if Dina stayed, then it would have been Ellie and JJ and Dina, and then odds are Lev might have, well, the thought process would be like, well, if I kill Abby, then Lev's just gonna come and kill me, and then JJ and Dina are left, like, looking like, oh my god, they killed them. But honestly, if Abby killed, or Ellie killed Abby, I feel like Lev probably would have died on that boat. Like, I don't think there's any way that she would have, or he would have come back from that. But, who knows? Storytelling. But yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun playing the second time around, a lot more, just because, like, I knew what all was coming. I kind of wanted to talk about, really quickly, how some people were saying the game was too long. On my second playthrough, I didn't feel like that, but I do have a thought of as to why some people were thinking that. I feel like it's because the game came out, and everyone was trying to finish it so quickly, especially YouTubers and streamers. Everyone was trying to finish it so quickly because they didn't want to get stuff spoiled for them. For a lot of people, a lot of the big stuff already got spoiled for them from the leaks a couple months ago, which I still have to this day have never seen what specifically was leaked. Like, I know there were leaks. I'm certain that Joel dying and having to play as Abby was somewhere in there. Like, I don't know how much else stuff was leaked. Like, but yeah, I stayed far away from that stuff. But I feel like that's the reason why a lot of people were saying, like, the game is too long. Like, yes, the game is a very long game, but I mean, if you're playing it and trying to record stuff or live streaming it, like, yeah, it's gonna feel long, especially if you try to push yourself for like 4 or 5 hour streams. Like even I played it in like increments of like an hour per episode. And some of that stuff it was like double recording, so I would play it for 2 hours, but it still didn't really feel very long to me, just because like I wasn't playing it for as long as those people were. So I feel like that's probably the reason as to why a lot of people were saying that it feels way too long, is because they were trying to play it all at once so they could get through it and not get it spoiled for them somewhere else, and so they could get that content out. Everything's got to be timely. You got to get this stuff out sooner rather than later. I mean, even this, I'm sure this video is probably not going to do super well, just because it's a discussion for the game that's coming out a year after the game came out, but it's for a good reason. It's because I needed to have a good, clear idea of what my thoughts were on the game. Um, so let's talk about the ending. So the ending, Ellie lets Abby live, and I kind of want to think. It makes me think about like which one of these characters lost the most. And honestly, it's Abby. I mean, obviously Ellie lost Joel, but and she did lose a lot more than that. Ellie lost Joel. She lost, I guess, basically a lot of her sanity. It's kind of like that song that they sing and play on the guitar throughout the entire thing, like Future Days. If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. Definitely Ellie lost a lot of herself after Joel died. And then, what was it? During the fight with Abby, she loses her fingers, which ironically are the last two fingers that I have not yet held up on this hand. She loses her fingers. She loses her knife during the fight. Like, it gets knocked off into the water and we never see it again. I highly doubt that she sat there in the water looking for it after Abby went off in the boat. She loses her knife. She loses her fingers. She ends up losing JJ and Dina. So that's a lot of stuff. She ends up ruining her relationship with Tommy, even though she did go and find Abby, but I'm sure even Tommy's going to be mad that Abby didn't, or Ellie didn't kill her. Maybe she'll lie to him and say that she did kill him. I'm guessing she probably ruined her relationship with Tommy's wife. What was your name in the game? I always called her Hot Mom or Hot Wife in the game, just because she was very pretty. But yeah, I'm sure she ruined her relationship with her, just because like the whole deal was like, I'm going to Seattle, I'm going to bring Tommy back in one piece. Obviously, Tommy didn't come back the same. Um, and I'm certain there's a lot more stuff that I'm missing that Ellie has lost in this game. But she lost her dad. She lost all of her best friends. She lost the person that she loved, Owen. She lost Yara. She lost the Fireflies basically because of Joel. Because after the whole thing that happened at the hospital, it seemed like the Fireflies went down for a long, long time. Um, I'm sure she lost her sanity a lot on along the way trying to find Joel. So it seemed like it would seem that they're very dead even. But I mean, also towards the end of the game, Abby lost a lot of muscle while she was on the pillars. Definitely lost her hair, lost that tail. So I mean, the last couple things for Abby are very minimal, but it does still stand that she lost more than Ellie. But the thing is, they lost a lot. But Abby has kind of gained one thing, which is Lev. Ellie is the one that has lost the most, especially at the very end of the game, because after letting Abby go, she goes back to the barn or back to the farm, and Dina's gone. And she's packed up all Ellie's stuff into this one small room, all the records, all the paintings, even Joel's wooden carvings, which I thought was a nice touch that they took some of his wooden carvings from his house and put it in their house. I thought that was very nice. And, all that stuff is now in that room. Ellie tries to play the guitar, obviously can't because she's missing a couple fingers. And then we do the whole flashback sequence where Abby and Joel are talking to each other on the porch, and Joel's drinking his coffee, and Ellie basically tells him, like, I should have died in the hospital. Joel tells her that he would have done it all over again. And Ellie says, like, I don't think I can forgive you for that, but I'd like to try. And then the last really major thing that Ellie says to Joel before the day comes that he gets killed by Abby is, I'll see you around. And Then we cut back to Ellie with the guitar, and she just leaves the guitar behind, leaves everything behind, and just goes off. So the question is, if there is a part three, which I'm confident that there will be a part three, I just feel like it's going to be a whole lot longer now, which kind of sucks. I really don't want it to be that we have to wait another game cycle. Because think about it, The Last of Us came out at the end of the play cycle for the PlayStation 3, and then Last of Us Part 2 came out at the basically the end of the cycle for the PlayStation 4. It really sucks if we have to wait for the entire cycle of the PlayStation 5 to go by before we get The Last of Us Part 3, if it does ever come out. But if there is a part 3, what is the story that can be told there? Is one of two options, I feel like. Ellie going out on her own and just completely trying to start over new, going on by herself, and just living out the rest of her days by herself with like this fractured mind that like I've lost everything. Like I tried to get my revenge, it did not work. I did not bring back anybody. In fact, it drove more people away. You could either do that, or she's off to find Dina and try and make good on all this, which I feel like could be the better story of, like immediately after that scene, Ellie goes into town asking like, "Where's Dina?" and stuff like that, and you get that whole conversation with some of the townspeople and people like that, and Tommy, and talking to them. You get that whole moment where Ellie lies to Tommy and says like, "Yeah, I killed Abby." Abby, I don't know. Like, I don't know how fans would react if Abby's in part three, but I mean, it would feel very, very weird if, like, the last thing we see of her is her just driving off in the boat. Because, like, on the main title screen, like, the main menu was the boat. Like, once you finish the game, it's a boat crashed on the beach, which I'm pretty sure from Abby's whole thing towards the end of the game, she was trying to find the Fireflies, and then she immediately got into contact with them, and they said that they're in this like big dome building by the beach. So I feel like that's where Abby is now. She's with the Fireflies. Um, I don't know what you would do with Abby. I don't know how you would add them both in, if you would go for a whole bouncing back and forth type of deal. Uh yeah, that's very interesting. I don't know how they would add Abby into the game if they did for part 3. Um yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting to see um where Ellie and Abby could go for a potential part 3. Um I don't know. I would definitely be interested in seeing a part 3, just because I would love to see more of this world. Like, obviously, if I haven't made it a point enough, I definitely really love this game, and I love it a lot more the second time around playing it. Like, not, but most of the focus that I wanted to put on this video is the story, just because that's kind of the big thing that a lot of people had issues with. The gameplay was still very awesome, just as awesome as the first game, with the added elements of like the dogs and like even stuff that you wouldn't really think about, like how the AI interact with each other. Like the wolves. They're covert ops. They have much more strategic strategies, and then you have the hunters, and then you have the sacrifice. They whistle to each other, and if one of them doesn't respond after you've killed them, then the entire group will go and check on them, and that's how they find out that they're dead. Or like whenever you kill a regular person and someone ends up finding their body, they like call out their name, and it alerts everybody else that someone's in the area. And how the infected work. I feel like the stalkers were much better in this game. Like how they actually stalked you. Like I thought they were a lot better in this game. Yeah, I love how the different enemies interact. The new infected types. What was it? The one where like Shambler. That's what it's called. The Shambler. I thought that was really cool. And the Rat King was really freaking awesome. The whole boss fight with Abby, I thought that was very well done. Um, Just gonna say, I feel like Ellie would have been able to take it down quicker. Just had to get that in there. But yeah, a lot of really cool enemy types this time around. I feel like they could do a lot more enemy types in a potential part three, or who knows, maybe part three, maybe there are hardly any infected left, and now it's just down to like the biggest enemies in this world are other people. I feel like that could be pretty cool. I feel like that's an idea that people have been hoping that The Walking Dead picks up. I've been watching The Walking Dead on again, off again for the longest time, but that is a thought and an idea that a lot of people have been wanting to see on The Walking Dead is like, the walkers becoming less of a problem and the humans becoming more of the problem, which I think sounds cool, especially in a post-apocalyptic world. You would think, like, in a zombie-infested world, you would think the zombies are the biggest problem. No, 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 no. When it's all said and done, the men and women of the world are the biggest problem in that, because they're the ones that decide, really, like, do we build back society or do we keep it as it is? And obviously, there are groups in the world of The Last of Us that would like to build back society. Obviously, Tommy's whole town is about trying to rebuild a society. And then there are people like the hunters and the sacrifices and the wolves that are just contempt and staying in this world but keeping it for themselves, which is a very interesting idea to play with. Um, God, I feel like I've been talking for so long about this game, and I'm really glad I finally got around to doing this whole discussion about it, because there have been a lot of things that I've wanted to talk about, and I'm really glad I finally did the second playthrough, because, like I said, I did like it a lot more the second time around than I did the first time. And I was really hoping that I did enjoy it the second time around, just because, like, I loved the first game, and I was so excited for a second game, and I was so bummed out with a lot of the stuff the first time I played it when the second game came out, especially with Joel dying and having to play as Abby. But like I said, the second time around, I had a lot more fun. Obviously, part in that was because I had some of those cheat codes, so it made it a lot easier to play some of those parts. Um, but I still had a lot more fun. Story, I had a lot more fun with that. Yeah, I could still understand some people's anger. Like, there are some moments where it seems like a character does stuff where you wouldn't really think they are, but some of those things, they're just like heat of the moment type of things. Sometimes you don't think rationally. Um, and when it comes down to it, that's the way they wanted to tell the story. If you didn't like it, then understandable. If you did like it, understandable. Um, the first time around after I was done playing, I said, to the people that like Abby, good for you. It just means that you got more stuff to play or more stuff to enjoy about the game. Second time around, I did enjoy Abby a lot more. Still not a super huge fan of her, but I do think she had a really good story arc in this game. Would I like to see her back for part three? Honestly, no, but I do want to see her back in a part three, just because if she doesn't come back in a part three, then people are going to be even more mad. Like, well, what was the point of her being in part two? And I would hate for that to be the case, just because, like, I do like her story arc in part two, but it would be interesting just to see, what happened with her story in part three. How would the Fireflies react to having a WLF and a Scar, working together in their whole town or whole colony? Um, yeah, I feel like that could be some interesting stuff. Um, but yeah, like I said, I've been rambling on for quite a while here. Uh, but yeah, I'm really glad I finally got around to doing this. Feels like definitely kind of getting my final thoughts about the game put out there. I'm probably definitely going to play it through again, from the very beginning rather than just playing from Abby's part. Uh, I'm sure I'll enjoy it over and over again, the more and more I play it. Let me know in the comment section below. What did you guys think of The Last of Us Part 2? I know it's been out for about a year now as of this recording. Um, so I want to hear people's thoughts, and are you excited if they do a part 3? I'm excited about the HBO series that they're doing. with the casting that they've done, it seems like it's going to be very interesting. The writers of 𝗟𝗜𝗦𝗧, which I still need to watch that series. It seems like it's going to be awesome. You know, everybody says that the story of The Last of Us is about Joel and Ellie, and now we get a series that's just about Joel and Ellie. I feel like the only way that series could fail is if they kill off Joel in the first episode, which I highly doubt that would happen. So yeah, comment below your thoughts on the game. Let me know what you thought of it. What were some of your favorite moments? What do you guys think is going to happen in a potential Last of Us Part 3? Yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.